I think it's important that he not be allowed to say whatever. I mean, the truth is he's the reason American women are now dying of sepsis.
All right. What's up, gang? This is Carlton Flowers with the Go Political channel, and today we need to discuss this video clip that aired on BSNBC, also known as PMSNBC, just a couple of days ago on the topic of Donald Trump supposedly flip-flopping on his stance on abortion. And it is a very sensitive subject that I don't cover a lot. But before we dig into this clip and react to it, let me just tell you what my stance is on abortion. It's an interesting stance. It doesn't fall in one party's viewpoint or the others. I'm kind of out there just in outer space with a very different view. I happen to be pro-choice. Now, before you completely have a conniption fit, I am pro-choice, but I am not a proponent of abortion for many reasons, and I am a realist. So I am pro-choice because I'm a man, and I don't want to get involved in legislating the way that we regulate something that I can't experience. Now, I'm happily married and I have 4 kids, and my wife has more of a right to really get involved in taking a true stance than what I do as a man. And so while I am pro-choice, I did say that I'm against abortion. Why? Well, number one, the whole eugenics thing. I think abortion is disproportionately affecting the Black community when compared to all of the other ethnic communities in the United States. Our population is stagnant. We are becoming less and less of a percentage of the overall makeup of the United States, while other groups like Hispanics, Asians are growing. And this is because the long-standing stance on abortion over the decades since this whole idea of eugenics has been brought up. One fact that we can't get around is that the overwhelming percentage of abortions are happening in the inner cities, in the Black community. And many of the people who live in the inner cities are fighting for the right for our population to stay stagnant or decrease, and that's pretty sad. Now, the other thing is this: I'm a realist, and so we have people who are pro-life, we have people who are pro-choice, and I'll say that I'm pro-choice while recognizing the obvious. So abortion is actually killing a baby. I mean, it is. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's not something that a lot of people like to really think about, but when you perform an abortion, you are ripping a baby limb from limb out of the womb of a woman who has a right to do that, okay? And so it is what it is. There are people who have been born premature, months premature, while at the same time, those children who survive, there are those who have been aborted that were further along the pathway of many children who were born and survived. And so that means that, yeah, it is a baby who's living within the womb of a person that has a right to say, I want to terminate. And so, like I said, we got to call a spade when we decide to terminate for whatever reasons, for the health of the mother or just for the reason that that mother doesn't want to be a parent and birth a child. When the procedure is performed through vacuum aspiration, that child that could survive is ripped limb from limb and their life is ended. And so we have to look at it for what it is. Now, a lot of the people who are pro-choice will say that there's a biblical mandate against abortion, but we oftentimes don't bring up the stories in the Old Testament where Yahweh, the God of the Israelites. If you read the book of Deuteronomy, as the Israelites are going out and conquering the land that was their promised land, they were instructed to go and level the cities, kill the men, kill the women, kill their sheep and goats. And it even goes on to say, kill the unborn that are within the wombs of the women. Okay, if you don't believe that, you can look it up yourself, but that's a discussion for another day. So we do have a biblical mandate that says thou shalt not kill. We also have biblical mandates that talk about the slaying of children of the unborn, where during the time of the Old Testament, women had no rights whatsoever. Now, of course, you get the people that'll say, well, that was the Old Testament, you got the New Testament now. I don't tend to accept that. If we're going to use the Bible to create mandates for modern time, we have to consider the entire book. Because as they say, God is the same as he was yesterday, as he is today, and will forever be. And the Old Testament and the New Testament are in perfect balance. All right, well, let's just get back to the topic of the video in question here on BSNBC. As you saw, just with the little sliver of the clip that I showed you, the one thing that popped out to me was this whole idea that Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed to say what he wants to say. Now, this is just a little hidden thing that lies within the radical left of the Democratic Party. Not everybody within the Democratic Party has these same beliefs, but those in the radical left don't believe in free speech. No matter what their opinions are, they are allowed to express their opinions. But at the same time, in the same breath, they'll say that those with opposing views should not be allowed to speak their opinions. That's something to think about. So let's go back to BSNBC and watch this clip in pieces as I react. Cut to clip.
I think it's important that he not be allowed to say whatever. I mean, the truth is he's the reason American women are now dying of sepsis in public bathrooms. He's the reason women are infertile because they can't access basic reproductive health care. He's the reason men and women who are physicians have backup plans in case they're arrested for providing health care for women. He's the reason abortion is illegal now, and he's the reason Republicans are struggling in so many elections. What do you want to see happen with this latest rhetorical mishmash from him?
Okay, that was a little extreme. A little extreme. Trump is the reason why women have sepsis or dying, suffering, and why doctors are afraid to handle miscarriages. I don't know if I can quite agree with that and take it so far as to say that Trump is the sole reason for all of the suffering that's going on. I mean, this has been an issue for quite a long time. And of course, as we know, after Roe v. Wade was turned over, it was thrown back to the states. So being fair, maybe we could say that it's the states who have more restrictions on abortion. Maybe that could be the reason. And still, I don't quite believe that. But the statement that this is why Republicans are struggling in elections. We'll get more into that in a minute, but let's go back to the clip.
I think what we've seen over the last few years has been an effort on our side to really define Donald Trump on this issue. And since he picked J.D. Vance, the definition has just gotten clearer, right? You've got two incredibly misogynistic, anti-women candidates on the top of their ticket for the GOP. So one of the refreshing things about the coverage in the last 72 hours has been how clear-eyed our friends in the press, activists, candidates, the Harris Walz campaign have been about making it very explicit that the message stays the same, Donald Trump will say and do anything to distract from his disastrous record on reproductive freedom. He cannot be trusted. What you can trust are the facts, as you just laid out. He appointed the justices. He is responsible for this crisis. And not only that, he's bragged about it, and he wants to punish women and doctors. And that seems to be coming up very clearly with voters. There's a new New York Times a poll about how women under 45 are picking abortion now as their top issue, even over the economy, and that there's a 20-point margin of favorability for Kamala Harris over Trump on abortion.
Oof. So we've got two misogynistic anti-women candidates. Okay, while we allow them to have that opinion, let's just kind of think about this. So if they're anti-women, misogynist, what about the women that support them because they support their view on abortion? And what about the unborn children? So if you're standing up for the unborn children, the ones who are aborted that could survive, that are aborted for no other reasons than the mother just didn't want to give birth, and you stand up for them, does that make you anti-woman and misogynistic? And the disastrous record on reproductive freedom. Well, what is that? Reproductive freedom? Well, let's just put that in realistic terms. Let's say disastrous record on the right to terminate an unborn child, to end the life of an unborn child. Let's just say what it really is. And then the comment about abortion over the economy, that many women, it's their number one issue that they will focus on abortion, even over economic policies. Well, that is true. That's true for many women. And then she claims that there's a 20-point margin for Kamala over Trump just on the issue of abortion. But last time I checked, that doesn't quite make up for the lead that Trump currently has. But let's just go back to the clip and listen on.
You know, April, I feel like some of what the media got wrong with Trump was looking at Trump as a politician in a time capsule. I had Fred Trump on today, and Trump describing the men and women who died in service of the nation as suckers and losers wasn't a blip. It was part of a long line that started with a podiatrist writing him a BS note saying he had bone spurs, so he didn't have to serve this country.
Oh, man. Honestly, I just don't know what we can do about that comment. Suckers and losers. Snopes even tackled this. Snopes, which is a left-leaning company, all right? Snopes, years after they could have actually addressed this, they finally did address it, and they debunked this whole story about Trump thinking that those who served the military or fought in wars or died are suckers and losers. But I guess this is what we would call Trump derangement syndrome, or some type of a psychosis, because it's so burned into their minds they won't let it go. It doesn't matter that even someone who has their political leanings has said, all right, this story is not true. So I guess we just have to continue to listen to them make that point over and over and over again. I don't think there's medication or any type of psychological counseling that can fix that. All right, let's go back to the clip.
His views on overturning Roe aren't a blip either. They're part of, grab women in the P word, because when you're famous, they, quote, let you do it. The misogyny is the point. It's not a bug. It's a feature of who Donald Trump is.
Oh, my God. Okay, so yeah, yet another story that will never, ever die. So here's what's interesting about that whole story. They're just not ever going to let that go. Number one, it was a private conversation going on with some men. And Trump even said that this was not meant to be heard publicly, and it was taken out of context. But here's the sad fact of the matter. What he was saying was true. So Trump was talking to the other gentleman about the extremes that women who compete in pageants would go to, the extreme measures that they would go to in order to win, in order to get to Miss USA or Miss Universe. And he said that they basically drop all their morals and would not resist any type of foul treatment by a man. And so he basically said, yeah, you can do anything you want. You could grab them in the P word and they won't complain, because all they know is that they will do what they have to do, including degrading themselves, to win that pageant. So yeah, while the conversation was crude, what he said was true. But I tell you what, we got to stop there. I've got so much more BSNBC Trump derangement coverage that I want to share with you. Joy Reid, who is the worst, who is the absolute worst. I'm going to have some footage coming up with some of the most ridiculous statements you have ever heard in your life, as BSNBC continues day after day as a political machine that's put out there just to do one thing, and that's bash Donald Trump and try to push this election towards Kamala Harris's favor. And so they continue on talking about how great she's doing in the polls. Meanwhile, when we look at the Poly Market site, this is something that they probably don't want to talk about on BSNBC, but we'll be getting more into that in the future. That's all I got for this subject for now, guys. This is Carlton, and I am out.